I want to give you a 5-step process to transform strong emotion into creativity, step by step. And this is something that all great art comes from. It's the reason that we can feel at the depth of our being when somebody writes an amazing song or makes an amazing painting. It's because they're taking what they're feeling and they're putting it out to the world in a way that resonates, in a way that you can see and feel. It's the reason that the same picture drawn by 2 different people can affect you in 2 vastly different ways. It doesn't so much have to do with what's on the page as it does to the emotion that people can feel as it comes through. So the first piece of this process is time. We've got to give ourselves a little bit of time between the strong emotion and what we're creating. I used to think that we needed to be in it immediately, that you needed to get started right away. And I had this deep fear that I would lose what was flowing through me. And what I'm doing right now is exactly this process. This popped into my brain because of a really tough night last night and really feeling like the world was against me this morning. And when we get to the end, you'll see how exactly opposite of the truth that is. But in these strong emotions, we get lost and we feel like it's the only thing that could ever exist. Like when you're in grief, it feels like you're never going to get out of grief again. And it's almost impossible to create when you're in that deep, deep pit. So be gracious with yourself. Give yourself some time. Give yourself some reflection. What I just did is I went out and I meditated and I sat, I went and I surfed and I got into the outdoors where I can recharge, where I feel better. And in that time, in that space, we allow the opportunity for something to trickle through the cracks, for something to start to seep into our awareness that wasn't there before. So if you have strong emotion and you want to make something of it and nothing comes, that's okay. It's just not time yet. Take a little bit longer. Go through a process of feeling where you're feeling these things in your body. Get some distance between you and what it is you want to create. The next one is to recognize what it is you're feeling. So recognizing the emotion, recognizing where that emotion came from. So are you angry? Are you sad? Are you happy? Are you scared? And noting where you feel that in your body. That's a big part of emotions. We tend to get locked into our head. And when you're locked into your head, you have a hard time feeling and processing the emotion. So what I was feeling today was in my heart. It was in my chest, and it just felt like this hole, like this space. It felt like I was a little kid who never had anybody care for him. It's just recognizing where you are and giving yourself permission to be where you are is another big part of it. We can't rush this. We can't wish things away. It's about knowing that you are right where you need to be. It's recognizing what got you to this place. That's the other part of this is, why are you feeling this way? Why do you think you're feeling this way? And sometimes there isn't a reason, and that's okay too. But other times, you know. So for me, last night I got into a fight with my daughter. And was I happy with what she did? No. But what made me even more unhappy was my response in the situation. I showed up in a way that I'm not proud of showing up, and I didn't do any real damage. But as I get further along in my journey, I want to always come with an open heart and with love. And I don't feel like I did the best job of that. I could feel myself trying to control the situation. And when we can recognize what got us into this emotion in the first place, we can start to get a layer below. We can see what is actually causing this? Because a lot of times we have this initial feeling, and a lot of times, at least for me, it's blame. This other person made me feel this way. Or we take what happened on the surface, like somebody cut you off as like a silly example, and put you into this like deep anger. But in reality, it's rarely the thing that happens that actually makes you feel that level of emotion. There's something deeper going on. Maybe it's an old story or an old pattern, or it's a core belief that you have about yourself, that you're not enough, that you're not worthy, that you're not powerful. But taking some time to really connect with what is this emotion, recognizing the emotion, and what is it that triggered this emotion. Then the next piece is to remember a paradox, which is that you are unique. And at the same time, what you're going through is not unique to you. I can almost guarantee, with the number of humans that have been on this planet over time, that somebody has gone through something similar. There's just been so much suffering in this world. There's been so many different cycles that repeat themselves over and over again. And if you can give yourself the grace and the space to recognize that this isn't about you, that can breathe a sigh of relief. It allows you to breathe a sigh of relief. It gives you an opportunity to, again, create some space. We need some space in order to get to the creativity, to let the divine spark or the muse come into you so that you can express the feeling. The other part of being unique is that you are unique. And that's why I say it's a paradox. You have unique gifts. You have a unique offering for the world. You have a filter that is unique to you. Your understanding of this situation, even though it has likely happened to somebody before, is probably very different because you have different life experience leading up to it. You had different circumstances. You had different expectations. You have a different way of being in the world, and you have a different way of seeing the world. And that uniqueness, that different way of seeing, is what allows you to create beautiful things, because you can express your point of view. And as long as that point of view comes with emotion, it's going to impact other people. So your uniqueness is both what makes you different from everyone else and what draws you closer to everyone else. It's what connects you. It's what allows others to feel the depth of the art that you're creating. It's what allows you to use your special gifts. We're all born with different genius, with a different way of seeing the world, with a different way of being able to deliver information. So like for me, I love to teach. I love sitting here and standing in front of a whiteboard and trying to help people think about things a different way, or giving them tools to be able to take a tragedy or be able to take some pain in their life and to transform that into taking action, into being there for somebody else. And your unique gifts are probably totally different from that. Maybe you're more practical. Maybe you want to go and solve a problem for somebody. Maybe you're more an emotional type and you can be there with another person, and your being in pain is what gives you the ability to have deep compassion for somebody else in the world. There's a million different ways to be creative, just like there's a million different versions of how you can use what's happening to you to be there for the world. And that brings me to the next piece of the puzzle here, which is to serve. We are here to be of service, and that is exactly what creativity allows us to do. So often we try and walk in the footsteps of another person. We try and follow a defined path because we're afraid. because we don't think we have the capacity to figure it out, because we're worried other people are going to judge us. But that service requires you to take initiative. It requires you to be different. It requires you to remember that we are separate from one another, or different from one another, and at the same time, not separate from one another. We are all one thing. What somebody else does affects me, and what I do affects them. And so by serving somebody else, it's making my life feel like it has more meaning. It's making me remember that this world is about helping other people. And when you apply that to creativity, it takes it from this selfish need for something to come into your life, and instead allows you to do the opposite, to take something that's happened to you and be able to give back into the world. And that is service. And your service is going to take time, and it's going to take you to think about, or it's going to make you think about recognizing your unique gifts. And when you do that, you are able to engage with the world in a way that makes it better for everyone else. And that's ultimately what we're here for. And as long as you can keep that in the back of your mind, it doesn't really matter what you create. It doesn't really matter who it is that you are helping. All that matters is that you're doing it to make the world feel a little bit better, or to see a truth that maybe they didn't see before. Service is what drives all of us, whether it's service to oneself, greed, getting myself further along than somebody else, serving my purpose, everyone else be damned, or it's service to somebody other than you. And when you start to serve somebody other than yourself, the gifts that come back to you are tenfold. If we can just have some faith and know that the universe is going to return what we're putting out. It's a universal law, justice. What we put out to the world, the golden law, treat others how you want to be treated. What you put out to the world is going to come back to you, as long as what you're doing is in service and with a pure heart. And so as you're creating this thing, think about, how is it going to further the world? How is it going to help somebody else? And it's okay. Maybe you just need to serve yourself, so that in this particular situation, so that you can serve better later down the line, or in a different way later down the line. Not everything creative needs to go out to the world. Sometimes it's to heal your soul so that you can serve others down the line. You can't pour from an empty cup, to use those probably way too overused words. And then the final piece is probably the most important, and that is truth. People can see a facade. They can see that if you're making something that isn't true to you, they can see the fluff. It's going to have zero impact. That's why art is driven by emotion. You've got to share what happened to you. You've got to tell the truth, no matter what it is, no matter how dark it is or how light it is. The truth is what impacts people. The truth is what gets people to see the world a different way. So when I went out this morning to go and surf, like I said, really felt like the world was against me. I got there and the traffic was gnarly, and I was upset about that. My daughter was late getting up this morning, and I was upset about that. I got to the beach and the waves looked incredible, and then within 15 minutes of me getting there, they turned to absolute garbage. And the truth in that moment was, I was angry. I was angry at the world. I was angry at myself. I was just mad. And then, I got back into my truck after I went surfing, and I was listening to a sermon. And I'm not Christian, quote unquote, although I do believe that Jesus was a person, and that's neither here nor there, who had incredible powers and is an example of a path of compassion and a path of love. And the sermon that I listened to was about the Holy Spirit coming into you when you feel powerless, when you feel your weakest. And it's like in that moment, the world was saying, it is not against me. That is not the truth. That's how you're feeling in this moment. That's your current emotion, but you know at the heart of your being that that is not the truth. So I drove home, and honestly, I was still mad as I was listening to this sermon. I was like, okay, this is great. And at the same time, why does crappy stuff keep happening to me all morning this morning? Why did I act the way that I acted last night? And then I pulled into my driveway and I opened my email, and I subscribe to this list about the Enneagram, and I'm an Enneagram type 8. For those of you that are familiar, that probably makes sense to you. But the email today, it's just like a quick little thought, literally said, the world is not against you. I cannot make this up. And there are people who look up to you and who are trying to love you. You just need to let it in. And that is the truth. That is why I'm sharing this video right now. In that moment, I realized that there was something greater going on. There was something that I needed to do in this moment. And that is to trust. Trust that something beautiful is going to come from this strong emotion. Trust that you have the capacity to handle it. Trust that you can serve. Know that you are unique. Trust that the universe has your back and is looking out for you. Trust that your creativity is going to impact somebody, even if it's yourself, even if it's one person. If you change one person's day with something that you create, that's an amazing thing. I was listening to this guy, Alex Hermosi, who's a leader in the business space. And he was talking about when he was creating content early on, and he would have like 20 people watch a video every week that he spent hours on making. And then he thought to himself at the end of a month, man, that's like 80 or 100 people that heard what I had to say. That's as good as being in a full room. So even though in that moment, it didn't feel like anyone was hearing him, no one was hearing his truth, he recognized that every 3 months, that was the equivalent of giving a keynote speech. And when you do that week after week, and you create and you create and you use the emotion that you have to share your truth with the world, it is a matter of time before there's an impact that you can feel. Because when you serve others, it always comes back to you. It's probably not going to be how you expect, but it always happens because there is universal justice. There is something here that is greater than we can recognize. Some people call it the muse, some people call it God, some people call it nature, the universe. I don't really care what you call it. All that matters is that trusting in something is the only way that I know to be creative. It's the only way that I know that you can take something that you perceive as negative with time, with thinking about what's happening, with knowing who you are, with service, and expressing it as it is true for you, that you can make things that can change the world. I hope that was helpful. That one literally spilled out of me from that meditation. This is that process in action. All right, guys, until next time.